My number one goal tonight is to help you understand hormone physiology. And in doing that, when you understand your body, you can have renewed purpose for nutrition and your lifestyle. So I have two topics that I'm going to cover today. The one is related to menopause, so menopause for women, and then andropause for men. So I specifically wanted to include men in this topic because I feel like the topic for men doesn't get talked about much. For women, we have had center stage the last couple of years speaking about menopause. I'm so excited that there is more scientific research going on, that women are being heard and that the symptomatology is not being overlooked, and women are not being called crazy anymore. Like our moms and grandmothers, they just suffered in silence. So we are a generation that is, breaking those chains or those cycles. And we know that there are things that we can do to prevent the symptomatology and to manage this transition well as we age gracefully. So just an overview, real quick, not to state the obvious, but this would be the definition of menopause and andropause. So with women, around age 40, it certainly can be earlier, we start to see a decline in our female hormones, in estrogen and progesterone as well. And we can see here by this chart that it can be quite a steep decline, and that's why women have such obvious symptomatology. But a lot of women don't know what's going on, and they just start having these certain symptoms, and they may not realize that it's because of the hormone decline. So they just think that, blood pressure is changing, cholesterol's changing, energy, muscle mass, libido, on and on. And what they say is we have these times in our on a chronological age where we age quicker. And so one of those first ages is the 44, 45 age. And this is because of this sharp decline that we have here. The thing with menopause is 100% of women will go through it. This is biology. This is when the ovaries they stop working, and then we have to have another way to produce these hormones. It's at a little bit of a different level in our body. So that's the key here, is we have to figure out, how do women, once we have this decline, how do we continue to produce a functional level of hormones? So with men, interestingly, the decline in testosterone starts a little earlier. So for men, it starts around age 30, and it is gradual. And so the symptomatology may not be as obvious. And I'll talk a little bit more about the symptoms on my next slide. And the thing is, not all men will go through andropause, actually, whereas 100% of women, because it has to do with the ovaries. But with men, if men can keep their testosterone at a higher functional level, they do not necessarily cross over to that andropause. But we are in a time and age where men's testosterone is significantly lower than it was decades ago. So really, andropause is becoming much more common with men than it used to be. So if we look at the symptomatology for menopause, there are so many symptoms associated. It's not just hot flashes, night sweats. So, obviously perimenopause, you have irregularity of menstrual cycles, and then obviously they stop. But it's so much more than this, and there's so many symptoms that women don't even realize are actually because of that drop in estrogen. One of the examples is frozen shoulder is actually a menopause symptom. Blood pressure disruption. There are just so many things. So when we go through the symptomatology, a major concern is how it affects men and women cognitively. And so we start to see some cognitive decline. I'm going to talk, that's why I'm tying in the brain aging topic today. These fit really nicely together, but certainly mood swings, depression, headaches, temperature dysregulation, memory lapses, brain fog is certainly a big one for women. For men, lack of focus, lack of motivation, decreased drive, decreased energy, heart palpitations. We already mentioned hot flashes and night sweats and not being able to sleep through the night. Then we look at things like urinary incontinence, vaginal dryness, reduced libido, erectile dysfunction, certainly, muscle loss and bone loss being big ones, joint aches and pains, and the list goes on and on. So the first thing I want to say, we normally have two categories of people when I talk about hormones. You have those who want to prevent or prepare for the transition, and then you have those who are really suffering in silence and dealing with some maybe what have become some chronic conditions and really need some help. So if you are on the prevention camp, this is what I will tell you, is you truly can focus on lifestyle to prevent and to manage this transition in life. They are key, and I would just continue to assess these. So number one, look at your nutrition. Keep your nutrition clean, meeting nutritional needs. I'm going to speak about this a little further. Keeping your weight healthy, exercising on a regular basis, and keeping good muscle mass and cardiovascular health. Just make sure that you're maintaining that fitness and continue to challenge yourself. Sleep is really key. And as we go through menopause and even perimenopause, that sleep becomes so important. In fact, we, especially women, need more sleep. And I'm going to call that sometimes around 9 hours. Men certainly do need more sleep too, but sometimes I find that they can get away with a little less. They may not need as much. Toxins is huge. Avoiding toxins, anything that you put in or on your body or that you breathe in. And so assessing your toxic load and then doing things to detox your body, whether that be heavy metals, whether that be like mycotoxins, microorganisms, excess hormones, and so forth. And then the fifth key area is stress. What's really interesting about these, and especially the stress topic, is that when men and women go through this hormone decline, it's at a phase of life. So think about women, the average age of menopause is 51. That means that 5 to 10 years before that is perimenopause, where a lot of these symptoms are starting. And this, that 45 to 55 age group is when men and women are at the peak of their earning, a peak of their success. highly driven, but also a peak of life where the demands get you from every area because you have aging parents that may need help. You have children that are maybe graduating high school, maybe in college. Maybe you have children that are having babies, and so it's helping out there. So it is a very key time of life where we're just needed in all areas. And sometimes the stress feels palpable and hard to avoid because there is so much going on. So I really feel like these are key. And if you can get a hold of these five, then you have a significant success rate of transitioning and like aging gracefully and doing it very well without the associated symptomatology and onset of any chronic diseases. So for those of you who are experiencing symptomatology and need help, need support, need some clinical oversight managing conditions or symptomatology, that I just wanted to share how I work with my clients. So maybe you can glean, just some of my clinical experience and wisdom and pull some things into your lifestyle or assess some things that you're doing. Or if you need someone to support you through this, then it's giving you an idea of how we would work together. So for me, because I do take a comprehensive, holistic, and of course, clinical approach, and so it is a step-by-step, it's systematic. It's kind of like when I'm talking to someone, you don't just go straight into like a detox. You have to prep your body, right? So we start off with addressing inflammation and nutrient deficiencies. This is pretty easy. You can simply identify nutrient deficiencies, one, by some testing, but also with a clinician. It can be looking at some symptomatology, and then I'm going to go into detail how I address inflammation. So that would be step one. That's the starting point. Step two is healing insulin resistance. Insulin resistance, just like inflammation, is certainly a root cause of 21st century disease. Insulin resistance is as well. And so it is key in healing any chronic condition. We have to address these. And then decrease visceral fat, or if someone is overweight or obese, we have to reduce body fat as well. Number three is balancing the microbiome, so looking at gut function. Number four is supporting the hormone pathways. And so a lot of times this is looking at the adrenals, but it was also linked to the gut, is actually even linked to the skin. It's looking at other places that produce hormones. And then the thyroid plays a role in these pathways as well, or is linked at least to these pathways. So those are what I look at. And then number five, which I'm not going to talk about today, but it is detoxing. Heavy metals are key for hormones, as they are certainly hormone disruptors. Plastics would be another one, actually. And so would seed oil. So we look at detox protocols, but that's a whole seminar in itself. So I'm not going to speak about step five today. So let's go into step one. So the starting point is testing for, sorry, I can't see my screen here. Let me see if I can. Is testing for fatty acids. I think what I'm saying there is omega-3, but it's blanked out on my screen. My apologies. So testing for deficiencies, which would include omega-3, which this is a very common deficiency. In fact, I share a lot that in all my clients that I've tested, I don't know, over 200 tests that I've looked at and reviewed, not one person, like literally not one person has had sufficient EPA, and that is significant when we're looking at inflammation. Well, I look at vitamin D, I look at vitamin B12, and I look at LDL. So some examples when I'm looking for deficiencies there. Other missing nutrients might be magnesium, zinc, selenium, vitamin E, and prebiotics. So these are specific to the hormone pathways. And then I eliminate inflammatory foods and additives. So this would be the sugars, the refined grains. In fact, in a lot of cases, I'm even eliminating grains, even legumes, period. Additives like artificial sweeteners, gums emulsifiers, certainly colors, dyes, artificial and natural flavors. So any seed oils would be a big one. You can literally just change your health just by eliminating seed oils. And so these are important. So really adopting a whole food nutrition plan. And when I'm working with someone, I'm certainly targeting this to the individual needs. Then we'll look at the best anti-inflammatory foods to be including, and these would be sardines, extra virgin olive oil, avocado, all berries, but specifically blueberries. They're a favorite of mine. Turmeric, walnuts, pomegranate, and coconut. Coconut oil, MCT oil are fantastic. So the second step then, once we've eliminated that inflammation, we're getting the nutrients coming in, then we look at insulin resistance. So I might look at someone's hemoglobin A1C, or can look at a fasting insulin as well, just to see where someone is at. So we have a measurement to work on. Certainly not necessary. I assess body composition and weight as well. I have some different strategies to heal insulin resistance, but my most successful strategy is a strategy that I've been using over the last couple of years. It's called the Take 5 Fast, and it's adapted from a fasting mimicking diet by Dr. Volta Longo. But literally, I see significant reduction in insulin resistance in just 5 days. It absolutely blows my mind. I've never seen this type of metabolic healing before. In protocols I used to run years ago, it would take me 60 days working with a client to see this type of healing. So the fact that we can fast track this and see it in this amount of time is amazing. I may use intermittent fasting strategies for this as well. We 100% eliminate sugar and alcohol. And a tip is to do a daily tonic with apple cider vinegar, cinnamon, and lemon for blood sugar regulation. So step 3, we're looking at the gut microbiome. The way that I look at this is I assess someone's Bristol stool chart scores. So basically they're assessing their poop every day, and we give scores to that to see how healthy or how we need to address that. I work with prebiotics to feed the good bacteria in the gut, which then in turn help to produce short-chain fatty acids, which are essential for healing and lots of functions in the body. We look at probiotic foods. I prefer to do probiotic foods, honestly, than probiotics themselves. I would rather have like the active microbes going in. I would rather do the prebiotics to feed the good bacteria. Then we address pathogens or overgrowth as needed. So that might be looking at something like Candida or SIBO or some kind of bacterial overgrowth in the gut, or potentially parasites in the gut. So we can look at those and give protocols for that. And then if someone has leaky gut or food sensitivities, this would be a time to address those as well. So then when we look at the foods that are conducive for hormone production, I'm going to start off with men. So this would be specific to testosterone and prostate health. And so Brazil nuts, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, sunflower seeds. And then key here, so important, beef, eggs, seafood, and butter. These are so good to support healthy testosterone levels. Onions, garlic, and tomatoes. Pomegranate juice, also fantastic for the prostate. Watermelon as well. And then vegetables like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, and carrots. Obviously, carrots for the beta carotene, vitamin A. And then the cruciferous to support proper hormone detox. So when I mentioned those foods, some people might look at those foods and think, oh, I've been told not to eat red meat and eggs and butter and shrimp because they're high in saturated fat, or they're high in cholesterol, or XYZ, whatever the reason. So I just thought I'd pop in this diagram here because I just sometimes have to remind people. So if you take your eyes, look for the hormones there. So look for testosterone. So look where that is. Look for progesterone. And then look for the estrogens, estrone and estradiol. Okay, so you see where those are. Now I want you to take your eyes and look at what the first building block, what is responsible for making all the hormones. And yes, that's correct. It is cholesterol. And so cholesterol, when we have hormone decline, becomes really important. So it would make sense that our body would naturally produce cholesterol to help with our body synthesize more hormones, right? So think about women when the ovaries are no longer producing that, a woman's no longer having her regular period, and then we need something else to take over. And so the go-to then after that is the adrenals. But once again, we just need the building blocks to support proper hormone synthesis, and it literally is cholesterol. So if you you could look at some charts, and I've literally heard hormone doctors talk about, especially like menopause doctors speak about this, but they it's almost 100% of an increase in LDL around the age of 50 for women. There's a reason for that. And remember, that increase in cholesterol normally has nothing to do with a change in diet. It's not like everyone's diet is changing at age 50. It's because our hormone levels have changed. And we also have to remember that cholesterol is mostly 75% of our cholesterol is made by our body. Our brain makes cholesterol, our liver makes cholesterol. And so only 25% is from our food. So some good clues there. So step 4 for women, specifically, this is a little bit different to men, even though women do need testosterone. So you can follow some of those recommendations. But for women, we need estrogenic foods and foods that are going to support progesterone as well. So we look at chickpeas, flax seeds, organic soy, although not everyone can do soy, but if you're someone that can do soy, it is estrogenic and can help postmenopause. It has to be non-GMO and organic. And then alfalfa sprouts. So these are key. I actually had someone in one of my healing pods, and she had struggled with significant hot flashes, night sweats. I think she said 20, 25 years. And she was at her wit's end. She was just so desperate for a solution. She joined my healing pod. I think that was her primary reason. And I remember saying, just eat chickpeas, eat chickpeas. They were like my savior a couple years ago. And she was so excited because she had I think a complete drop in her hot flashes. So she felt normal again. So chickpeas are a key one. For me personally, I've tried flaxseed as well. Like flaxseed just doesn't work for me, but for some people it works well. But for me, chickpeas and alfalfa sprouts are my friends. I do not do soy because I have a history of thyroid condition. Then when we think of hormone boosting foods. For women, we think of like orange and yellow foods, okay? So think here, pumpkin, butternut, squash, carrots. Those are also very supportive. So doing like a nice soup with bone broth, chickpeas, butternut squash, onions and garlic, that would be just a fantastic hormone boosting meal. Beef, fish, and eggs, also really important. I probably should have added butter there as well. This is person to person, but I do find that, because for some women, bone loss becomes an issue and I don't recommend calcium supplementation, that I do find I'm integrating with my postmenopausal women. I might integrate full fat dairy as a nutrient dense food. Because, if we think about a good cheese, for example, let's think of like a high quality Parmesan cheese, you're getting good fats, you're getting protein, you're getting probiotics, you're getting calcium, you're getting vitamin K2, you're getting vitamin D. You just got some really good things for bone health there. Onions and garlic. Also, once again, fantastic. In fact, onions are really good for testosterone and really good also for hair growth. If you want a hack, juice some red onions and drink the juice for men and women. That's quite a good hack for testosterone. And then pomegranate and cranberry juice as well. I forgot to mention, so one of the symptoms for women in menopause is UTIs. And adding some cranberry juice to your morning tonic can be really good. So now I'm going to go into actually, here's one last slide. Let me share this one. I'm going to go into brain health. And the reason is, if we look at the neuroendocrine system, there's a researcher, Lisa Mosconi. She's a neuroscientist, and she released her research, which included pre and post brain scans for women going through perimenopause and menopause. And her results were astounding, because what she found was that women's brains changed significantly as they went through menopause. Saw differences in the hypothalamus, brainstem, amygdala. So think about it, hypothalamus, that's temperature regulation, brainstem affects your sleep, amygdala affects memory and mood. Listen to this, 2/3 of Alzheimer's cases are women. There is something significant here, and we have to pay attention. Did you know that a hysterectomy correlates with higher risk of dementia? That is crazy. Women need to be aware of this, and we need to be able to prepare for this time. So I want to spend a few minutes, and I want to go over brain health and how we can prevent brain aging or reverse brain aging. And this is probably a good time for me to mention, especially because of some of the topics I'm going to go into here. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. This is intended for education. I'm just sharing my knowledge and my experience through a nutrition lens, not through a medical lens. So nothing is diagnosing or treating any conditions. Always consult with your physician before making any changes, all right? So symptoms of cognitive decline. So a lot of times it starts with some memory lapses, like losing words, thoughts, disrupted thought patterns, and then maybe even some short-term memory loss. Then slower processing speeds, difficulty concentrating and problem solving. The onset of mental health conditions can happen, although certainly, obviously, mental health itself is not cognitive decline, but we can see these associated. And then you have more advanced conditions like dementia, Alzheimer's, or Parkinson's. And so we certainly, we want to prevent these, right? I know for me, that would be my primary health goal, is we want to prevent chronic disease, but we certainly want to prevent dementia and Alzheimer's. I know that my husband and I have been touched by Alzheimer's. Many people that I work with, whether it be a parent or a spouse, and or, losing a loved one to one of these diseases is, and it's just absolutely awful. And I think no one would ever want to go through that. So I think this is really one of the primary things that we should be focused on in our health. So I wanted to share some Alzheimer's research. The foundation of what I do is always rooted in the research, and I use that to inform my protocols, my clinical oversight, and so forth. And I'm always keeping up with the research. And I thought it was appropriate for me to share. This is actually a little bit of a drama in the Alzheimer's research department. But I think a lot of us have been aware that Alzheimer's is associated with amyloid plaque in the brain, right? So that research, came out years and years ago. And so what happened is then all the research this was significant research. And so then all the research piggybacks on that and goes down these pathways. And then when the pharmaceutical industry, when they make drugs, they base it on the research. So then the Alzheimer's drugs are related to amyloid plaque. Well, a little drama happened a few years ago, and when it was actually, I guess, the drug company started asking some questions because the drug wasn't effective, and then there was these side effects, and like someone was sued, and things were going on. So they started looking into the original publications, and this is crazy, but they found that the foundation of this research on amyloid plaque was fabricated. Was fraudulent. So that only came to light in like 2021. And it's quite awful for Alzheimer's research, because that means that years and years of research and like all that research money, it was just down the tubes, because then it's like you have to almost start over again. And this piece that was a significant piece is now not there. And so it makes other things then irrelevant, right? So I thought I would share current research with you. And some of this is like really, really current. But these are some foundational pieces. So we'll look at 6 pieces here. The menopause piece is significant, but more research needs to be done on that. So we're not there yet in that area. But when we look at genotyping, so genes, there is a gene, ApoE, actually suppecifically on the 4th allele that is associated with Alzheimer's. And so the research shows that EPA and DHA supplementation is significant and necessary for this genotype. So from that, we can say, okay, it makes sense to prevent Alzheimer's, just in case someone has this gene, that there are no contraindications to EPA, DHA supplementation. It's a nutrient that our brain and our body needs. And so that's super simple, okay? EPA, DHA supplementation would be part of the puzzle in preventing Alzheimer's. There's a body of research on, basically they call it vascular contributions to cognitive impairment and dementia. And so this is basically saying that the vasculature is important. And so the take home here is circulation is important. Our circulatory systems, our blood circulation, and our lymphatic system. With the brain, they're called the glymphatic system. These are important because we've got to get oxygen and nutrients to the tissue, to the brain. And so that would be the take home there. Take care of your circulatory system. The third one, and this is maybe the most significant one. This is one that probably a lot of natural practitioners are going to be talking about, and it's insulin resistance. This has been associated with neurodegenerative diseases and brain aging. And so we have to reverse insulin resistance in general. And there's really just no reason to have sugar. Like sugar should not be part of our lifestyle. You know, maybe a treat here and there, but that sugar should not be part of that. And so we have to, and if there's any semblance of insulin resistance, we have to get our hemoglobin A1C in healthy range. I recommended 5.5 or below. Our fasting blood sugar, our fasting insulin. This is of paramount importance. The fourth one, low LDL cholesterol, is associated with brain aging and neurodegenerative diseases. Cholesterol is super important. I spoke about that with hormones, super important in the brain. It's needed for part of the cell membranes, needed for transport, and we can't function without it. So that is a definite factor there. In fact, low LDL cholesterol in people over the age of 65 is associated with early death. Number 5, neurotoxicity, specifically with the brain. We're looking at lead, mercury, and aluminum. And so it's removing any sources of those, like amalgams. You know, it's considering heavy metal toxicity going into your body, and then doing things to detoxify those. Once again, a whole nother conversation. And then recent research has linked alcohol consumption with Alzheimer's. And I think Parkinson's is, I can't remember the Parkinson's, but definitely with Alzheimer's, there is a link. They have now found links with cancer. And so alcohol now, based on the research that's just come out in the last couple of years, really shows us that there's no healthy consumption of alcohol. I discussed that slide already. So some markers that I look at when I am working with someone who is concerned about brain aging or neurodegenerative diseases, I'm looking at things like EPA, DHA, I'm looking at omega-6 to 3 ratios, omega-3 index. I'm looking at LDL. I also might look at that in the context of a full cholesterol panel, but that LDL is important, not to be too low. Looking at hemoglobin A1C or a fasting insulin. Vitamin D is significant. We have vitamin D receptors at every cell in our body. Vitamin B12 is linked also with brain. There's reasons for that just because of metabolic pathways, energy pathways. Looking at folic acid as well, and homocysteine. I'm specifically looking for some genetic variations with these tests. I thought I'd share, I just thought this was really interesting. I have some case studies that I'm working on, and I thought I'd just highlight. So incidentally, these 3 cases, I'm going to share Alzheimer's, a Parkinson's, and epilepsy. And I thought I'd share these just because they highlight some interesting things. And these cases, they are all they're doing their best in their health, or their families are doing their best in their health with their nutrition, supplementation, following doctors' recommendations. They're very aware. So in this case here, this is a 77-year-old male with Alzheimer's. Once again, family doing all the right things, nutrition, like everything's on point. But sometimes there's just something missing, and we have to test to identify it. So we never would have known this, but looked at their omega-3. All other numbers are good. Looked at the omega-3, and every single omega-3 tested here is deficient. And so remember that even if something has a small deficiency, it's still deficient. It means it's not at a functional range in the body. So so that function is not going to be there. And so for this case study in particular, this was the one missing thing. So then with supplementation, then we gauge, we test again, and we see how the symptomatology lines up with the labs. All right. This Parkinson's case, this one here, also doing very holistically minded, doing all the right things. For a doctor recommended omega-3 supplementation using a conventional fish oil, which I do not recommend, by the way, because they're oxidized, and I don't find them to be effective at all. And so I spoke to her. I said, "Have you ever tested your omega-3 levels?" She said, "No." And I'm actually surprised that they haven't. It's just an academic decision, right? Okay, the brain needs omega-3, just gave her the supplement. And then we tested. So she had been doing a high dose supplement because I think she had been taking like double the regular dose for quite a while, consistently. And I was very surprised to see that 3 out of her 4 omegas were very deficient. Just her DHA was up. And so her formula had a higher dose DHA, but it wasn't doing anything for her EPA, which is needed for the inflammation, which then threw some of her inflammatory markers off balance. And so it was just one simple thing that was missing, that because we tested, we were able to identify it, and we're able to change up her supplement regimen. So that's why testing is so important. We don't want to guess, and we don't want to necessarily just make like academic decisions. I'd rather see it in the blood work. This is a case study, someone with epilepsy, and I've had actually two case studies recently with epilepsy, and I thought just was interesting, and this is why I'm sharing it, is both of these individuals, these are younger women, so 39, 30 upper 30s or mid 30s. And both of these women have the highest DHA deficiencies that I've ever seen. So this one here, 66% deficiency, that is significant. We also see significant deficiencies in the other omega-3s. And when you look at the research for epilepsy, the EPA, DHA, they're implicated for this. And this specific case study is already seeing a reduction in seizures over the last 6 weeks of using Balance Oil, as well as following a specific ketogenic design diet, a clean ketogenic diet, I guess. So she's having good results. So let's look at the top supplements that I recommend. There's so many supplements for brain health, by the way. There's no ways I can talk about all of them and list all of them, but I wanted to recommend my top. Hands down, top supplement when you're thinking about brain health, or actually hormones for that matter, is going to be Balance Oil. So this is the omega-3 plus the polyphenols. This supplement is tested to get into the cell membrane, and it is the most stable of all the fish oil type supplements. It outperforms krill oil, cod liver oil, conventional fish oils. Vitamin D3, if your levels are low, got to get the vitamin D levels up. I recommend above a 50. B complex, so B12 is researched to be significant with brain health. I do recommend a methylated B complex. I don't recommend synthetics. And I do recommend a complex versus just doing B12 independently. The Bs do work together. Coenzyme Q10. So basically with the B complex, CoQ10, creatine, these here, I recommend specifically because we have to look at the energy pathways in the neurons. And because if those energy pathways aren't working and those cells aren't producing ATP well, then that's going to cause cell death, right? So we have to keep the energy production in the brain. So ways to do that, coenzyme Q10, as we age, this depletes, or if people take certain drugs like statins, coenzyme Q10 depletes. So I find that we normally at a certain age need that coenzyme Q10 supplementation, or with like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, that supplementation is important. I do have dosage recommendations on that if anyone needs those. Then creatine was always thought to be this like bodybuilder supplement, and I think sometimes it even got a little bit of a negative rap. But this is one, the research has been phenomenal for brain health. And it was also one of the supplements I recommend for my peri or postmenopausal women, actually because of muscle mass, but then also for how it impacts the brain. But you have to have enough of it. So there are ways to use it if you're using it for the gym and building muscle, and there are ways to use it if you're using it for brain cognitive performance. That's why I just put the 10 grams on there. You probably need to be doing at least 10 grams if you're using it daily for your brain. There are ways that instructions on how to use that. So don't just blindly go and use creatine. Hydration is important, electrolytes are important, and so forth. Magnesium L-threonate is a good form of magnesium to use for the brain because it's small enough to cross the blood-brain barrier. And I have clients, this helps them significantly with sleep, even with anxiety and with some cognitive performance things. Curcumin, just because it's such a powerful anti-inflammatory. And then I think I mentioned before, I'm not normally like big on I have been big on probiotics for certain conditions. I actually personally don't use a probiotic. I do sauerkraut every day. I do probiotic foods, and I do prebiotics. I have a high prebiotic diet. But I find with brain conditions, if you get the strains of probiotics correct, we can see actually a significant difference. So they do have a good impact for the brain. And so if that's something that you're looking at, you can type the strains to support your brain health, or you can use a brain health probiotic. The best foods, just as I wrap up here this evening, these are all fantastic, but for brain foods, you're really just thinking of, and also it lines up with hormones as well, but you just want to get all the healthy fats in there. It's so important. So coconut oil and MCT oil, fantastic. Having these on a daily basis, they are so good. MCT oil might even be a little bit better because it'll produce a higher number of ketones, and ketones are fuel for the brain. So that's also why a ketogenic diet is so good. I don't recommend ketogenic diet long term, and I don't recommend it for everyone. But if someone does have a neurodegenerative condition, or even something like epilepsy, seizures, a ketogenic diet is probably the best diet, and it's because of the ketones. Blueberries for the anthocyanins and polyphenols. So just think purple foods are super good for the brain. Avocados, walnuts for the healthy fats, sardines and wild salmon also for the omega 3s. The thing is, you can't actually do too much fish because of the mercury and the PCB. So it's like a tough one. So some people, if you're detoxing, I actually told them we have to significantly decrease the fish. Maybe some sardines would be okay. Dark chocolate's really good. And then garlic is another power food. Incidentally, garlic helps the body detox lead as well. So I think this wraps up just what I wanted to share with you all tonight. Just a review of the information that I shared at a recent seminar. When I'm working, as I wrap up, I think for the best results, especially if someone does have a condition that they're concerned with, or familial history or something. So when I'm working one-on-one with a person, we get the best results when we take a comprehensive and clinical approach. And using holistic principles. So I've designed a holistic healing strategy, which is an 8-week program. And it brings all these pieces into play holistically, and supports the body healing from the inside out. When I'm dealing with brain conditions, we are looking at lower carb or ketogenic strategies, and also high fat strategies. And we are supporting the microbiome. This becomes really important. And then we're addressing any root cause issues. These can be a lot of different issues. It's just different person to person, but an example of that might be heavy metals. If there is anyone today who does need to schedule a consult with me to discuss any of this information further and how it pertains to you or how we can work together, feel free to schedule a free consult with me. You can use the scan code, or you can go to my website at bridgetspurgeon.com. And you can use there is a schedule link there that you can schedule through there.